fashion is in Nagaland, fashion is an industry that has for so long sort of not tried but being in existence on its own. But the partnership of the government and especially a department like TAPMA coming and partnering with us means a lot to us. So thank you, sir. You know, in today's world, one of the challenges that is facing today's world, and we know that I know that every one of us is aware of, is the devastating effects of climate change. And one of the industries that is contributing the most towards destroying the planet is the fashion industry. And all around the world, people are taking steps to stop this. People are having discussions on how fashion as an industry can stop its contribution towards destroying the planet. And I was just thinking about us, in the context of Nagaland. We as indigenous people, even from the past, our people have contributed. Our people have lived a life that is in rhythm with the environment. And I know that even as we look at our own culture and even our clothing, Naga culture and Naga clothing has always respected the environment. And so this symposium is in a small way to begin discussion and to take the small steps towards what we, even if we are a small industry in Nagaland, what we as fashion students, what we as fashion industry can do towards contributing and making a difference to combat climate change.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I can see a lot of young students here, so that motivates me to motivate you further. Recently, I was in Mumbai as a panelist for this ongoing series of conversations which centered around crafts. And the topic of discussion was rooted in collaboration. And it spoke about infrastructure, institutions, and interventions. This was organized by the Asia Society, and this was the second series where I was the panelist, one of the panelists, there were three of us. But the session before mine had eminent speakers such as, I might interest you, the creative head of Christian Dior, she goes by the name Maria Grazia Churi, and another school of crafts, somebody that we also work with. So during the conversation, I underscored two things. Number one, the need for inclusivity and visibility of smaller groups, smaller voices, marginalized, minority and indigenous communities in well-entrenched platforms. Otherwise, all of us will be drowned in the world's most populated country as we take over China now. Secondly, I underscored the need for a very strong partnership between the makers. In our cases, we are talking about textiles, it will be our weavers. A partnership between the weavers, a partnership between the stakeholders or the entrepreneurs, partnership with organizations, institutions, and private sector, and lastly, the government. So, in that vein, I want to thank Bon J Artistry, who has taken this initiative to start this dialogue in Nagaland. To that end, I must tell you that of late there is a lot of buzz around the word Indigenous. Indigenous is trending. People are talking about Indigenous people, culture, food, music, fashion, textiles, etc. And while I think all of us may be aware of indigenous culture and all that it embodies, I wonder how many of you here today are aware of why indigenous textiles is trending, why it is in the spotlight, and why there is so much relevance to it. Anybody can tell me why? Okay, let me give you the answer. It is because of one simple reason. The reason being the fashion industry, the textiles industry, read in brackets, fast fashion, is one of the world's largest polluting industries to impact our planet. Think about that. Think about the enormous proportions that is attached to it. And this is why indigenous textiles have become so relevant. Not that it wasn't, because after all, I hope young students know that textiles are a marker of our identities. Textiles tell our stories, and textiles also are one of the strongest cultural custodians. Now, having said that, there is a very strong and conscious movement globally to support and subscribe to processes and practices, particularly of indigenous communities, which cause least harm to our environment. And this is exactly where we fit in. Scope, S-C-O-P-E, is staring at us. And this is precisely the reason why we must all make a collective effort to join this global shift and global movement. So again, I'm very happy that Bonji Artistry, with the patronage of TAFMA, has brought this together, first of its collaboration and partnership. We can't grow in silos, I hope you all know that. Let me talk about the relevance of the textile sector once again. If you look at it from the prism of the Sustainable Development Goals, which are considered as benchmarks to evaluate the progress of any society or any country, this sector fulfills 11 of the 17 SDG goals. And in particular, goal number 12 talks about sustainable consumption and sustainable production. So there we go. Now, for somebody who has walked the talk for almost 3 decades, I'm sure many of you were not born then. Mine has been a very potholed ride of, sustaining the business, of trying to stay connected to the markets, and to provide continuity of work to our weavers. But I persisted because I understood the soft power. Excuse me, can somebody tell them to put up the music? I understood the soft power of this sector and its cascading benefits, particularly in terms of women's empowerment, and so I pushed. Now today I'm very happy to tell all of you that without too much fanfare, we have been able to create a very strong ecosystem of weavers who have all been upskilled for international standards, and we have increased our footprints in this industry not only in Nagaland but in our neighboring states. What was once considered my biggest disadvantage or handicap due to not having enormous working spaces or fancy offices or fancy showrooms or fancy factories has today become my USP. Increasingly, people from around the world are coming to study our model. And this model was created with whatever resources we had at our disposal. Nothing like, I don't have an MBA degree. I don't have a background in design. I don't have a background in marketing. But I understood the soft power of this sector. So today, as I speak to you, our weavers are 99.9% home-based women weavers. And their textiles are being exported to many countries. And we do a very intelligent decision of where we want to sell. We just don't sell anywhere. So it's mostly to high-end markets outside. And if I were to walk the talk again, I really want that this sector booms in a way like never before. You know, when I look at young people, it upsets me because we have become vultures of other cultures. Am I right? No? We are losing our identities. We are losing our identities. We are not digging into what cultural wealth that we have in our backyards. We need to look at it from a different lens. And I'm sure there is no dearth of talent, no dearth of resources amongst our people here. And we need to transform this cultural wealth that we have into commercial wealth. Come on, we can't be living on those all our life. We can't be dependent on the government all our lives. But here we are, the two human capacities that money cannot buy is creativity and innovation, which is an inherent trait in each of the young people that I see. And I'm particularly targeting the young people because you are our next future. We have done our bit, but now it's for young people to stick your neck out of these woods. Yeah, really, we need to stick our neck out of these woods, and we need to take this to the next level. So before I go into another tangent on this, I love this topic. I love to talk about the scope. I hate the word potential because I've been hearing that for the last 3 decades. And if I may tell you the truth, my entire generation just grew up talking about deficits. We were just bemoaning the fact that we had this deficit, we had lack of infrastructure, we were like remotely connected, and all of that. And the buck stopped there. I'm sure many people must have tried, but that persistence was not there. So it really was up to us to take on the role of an educator, and we had to sensitize customers as to the nature of our loom, which I hope young people know that it is one of the most archaic looms known to mankind. It is also one of the most ancient looms known to mankind. And we need, it was my responsibility to educate discerning customers as to why this cloth woven on our loyal loom is much more expensive than any other cloth that you would find elsewhere. It was a Herculean task. And I was at the receiving end of many sniggers, but we survived. And today I'm happy to tell you that there is a lot of excitement in the global market amongst people who matter in the design fraternity to work with indigenous communities, with our traditional practices. Unfortunately, we have given up, we don't have at our disposal indigenous fibers. As much as I would have loved to use indigenous fibers, we also need a lot of R&D. I can't use the blanket of stinging nettle as a, it's not comfortable. We need more, processes to come up with a finer count of yarn, to make some blends, and to further enhance that by first designing and then weaving the fabric.
Many things regards to the motifs and patterns and cutting off neckline, especially by our designers, Naga designers. So could you please elaborate more on that? Because I feel like it is not right to just cut a neckline and then make something from the the hand-woven stuffs. So I think it is very important for the designers to understand that it is not right, and coming from someone like you will be best. So please elaborate on that.
Yes, yeah, sure. This is the reason why I showed you the slide from fabric to fashion. I think that says it all. There is a tendency for, I mean, with no bad intentions, I'm sure. Nobody has like, so that's why there's a need to educate and sensitize. But nobody, I mean, like, I've seen some horrendous designs, horrendous, it's like nightmarish almost, you know, cutting up some very traditional shawls or a mekhla and patching it with a gown, which may be in organza or for God's sake. I mean, come on, let's be more sensitive to the traditional cloth also. And as far as motives, and I think it's a debate for a larger discussion. You know, it goes very deep. That is why I also mentioned that there is a critical need to establish which are the designs that are reserved, which can be used. And only then, I think we can all march forward. You know, it's all about cultural assimilation also. The waistcoats that you are wearing, I mean, all of us wear, I mean, it's nothing Naga, is it? No? And currently the surface embroidery that is done, it's not done by our people. Don't we not get that? Don't we not get that? So I think it's about time also to look at this sector. Look at this sector like, I know for a fact that I have two grown-up boys, and every time they go out, they're wearing the bandana. I'm like looking at them and I said, come on, and then they look at me and say, but we can't wear that heavy shawl now. So I said, yes. So currently, like, we also weave, like, we find like exquisite shawls for men, which may not necessarily scream tribal or Naga from a mile, but it has the essence and ethos of Naga weaves. And I think there is a very, very good scope for us, particularly to make smaller cuts in our coats. We can also weave, like, I do not subscribe to patchworks, okay? However, there is a very, which I forgot to mention, there is a very, very good scope for yardage. And because the loyal loom has restrictions in terms of weight, there are a lot of designers for whom we work, we just weave them the panels, and then thereafter, like, they repurpose it. That's the right word to use, repurpose it with the woven panels. They just don't buy from the market and cut it out and use it like that. Yeah.
You started 30 years ago.
Yes. Yes.
What were the challenges that you faced, and how did you step into the global market?
I just answered this last week at to a very discerning audience, and I had to use my words very carefully. But heck, I'm not bothered anymore. I said the biggest challenge was acceptance.
That is some of the fibers which Naga can invest of our disposal.
First that comes to mind is the cotton. Many in the olden days, we all grew our own cotton, and the women used to spin hand spin the cotton into thread. And number two, I think there is a small effort by some organizations to grow cotton and pilot projects in the state. Number two is the stinging nettle that is commonly found in Peg district and also in eastern Nagaland. Yes. So these are the two fibers that comes to mind immediately. But there is another fiber which is no longer talked about. Is the tree bark fiber that the Koryaks used to use. I have some very interesting old textiles made of tree bark fibers. But we also have AB silk in our backyards. But the thing here is, it cannot be used in that format. It needs to be further researched, further developed into blends. Otherwise, no.
So well, if I say anything, like I'll just give a brief introduction about myself. So well, after I did my higher secondary 10+2 from science, I did my 10+2 from Pranab Vidyapith, which is kind of more of a Bengali kind of school. So after doing that, I had applied. I think almost all of you are from the fashion background, or we have some from the secular arts also.
A few from the arts.
Okay. Anyways, so after I did my 10+2, I was going around Dimapur and Kohima collecting the prospectus for the colleges, science college, St. Joseph colleges, and a lot of colleges. I was trying, what I would do after this my 10+2 after doing my science. So out of nowhere, I happened to land in Guwahati. So the name of the college was Indian Institute of Handloom and Textile Technology. So there is the only institute for the Northeast that we have in Guwahati. So basically for all those other Northeastern states, there was only one college that was Indian Institute of Handloom and Textile Technology that was in Guwahati. So I happened to visit that place. So I was interacting with the college's staff and then all those officers and all. So they told me I asked them, what is USP about this college? So he said, you're going to get a 100% job guarantee. So I was like, wow, whom come after doing the studies. And so I thought, let's give me a try. So I happened to get admission for the college, and then the first year, the first week, month, I happened to enter the classroom. Loom, muta manuhan bana things here. I was like, wow, man, we Nagas male have ego, Have anyone seen you male making all those mekhala chadars, weaving and all? Sorry? Wait. Hey, it doesn't know, right? I'm the one, so there was one thing, So initially when I, started going to college, I was regretting, honestly speaking, why? Gila I said, I used to hide inside the loom, the frame looms and all. So why did I come here? And I was thinking to myself, I think after a few months or maybe I'll just leave the college and then, go into some other colleges or try out something. Later on, I started introspecting myself, what I would do. High school, I failed. And then again, another 1-2 years lost with the queue. I was thinking to myself, let it be. So I took a commitment, and since that day, I've never regretted the decision that I took 15 years, I think more than 15 years back. So here I am today with you all. So, when Ma'am Bambi approached me, I was quite concerned, keep work, because I'm more of a trainer, not on a kind of, in a seminar day, I'm more of a trainer. I've trained more than nearly 1,000 women. So I've been with the women folks for the past 10 years, and then, feel the grassroots, that's where I belong.